All right, welcome back. This is Idaho Art Classes and Kevin McCain Studios, and today we're going to be drawing the features of the face. I've made this specifically for my my Drawing 2 Session 8 class, and this is where we're easing our way into doing the basic head, and we've studied the skull, we've done the basic head from the egg shape, and now we're going to talk just really about doing basic features. So this is really for those that are really wanting to learn the basic ideas of dealing with features and how to draw them effectively and stuff. And so we're going to start with the eye. Once we've broken down the head and we have an eye space, the entire eye goes in that eye space, including the tear duct. So if we're looking at an eye, now we're just going to talk about some general constructions of a general eye. This isn't, someone's specific eye, it's just a general idea of the eye. And there's a couple things we want to be thinking about, and that is that first, we're going to start with the tear duct shape, which is really just this is a, and we're going to start off with straight lines that will then turn into curves. So we're going to start off with this trapezoid shape, and this trapezoid shape is the tear duct. And then as we are going to start with the top lid and then the bottom lid. This is going to be somebody's eye on their right, or I guess, that I'm looking at, not my right eye, but somebody that I'm looking at, their right eye. When we're thinking of the top lid, we have three basic angles. And so the first angle is the one that's the most extreme. And then we have another angle that comes down, and then we have another angle that's a little softer. Now, again, this is going to become, rounded off at some point. But the whole idea of breaking curves into straight lines is, it can be very effective. If I'm trying to, do a curve like that, well, it's much harder to try to match that curve than it is if I broke this curve. Let's say we broke the curve down into some straight lines, like so, like so, like so, and like so. Well, this is going to be much easier to reproduce because of the fact that we can measure these straight points, we can then curve them off. So it gives us a lot more information. So if I was going to try to replicate that curve, it's going to be much easier to deal with straight lines than it's easier to deal with straight lines and curves. And so there'll be a lot of times when we draw where we'll take something that's very curved and we will instead break it into straight lines, because then we can always, as long as we get it correct, we can always take those straight lines later and we can, we can divide them and we can go ahead and make them much more accurate. So again, if I was dealing with this needs to come up a little bit. This still needs to start from here. This will then kick back. This will then come over here. We could go ahead and set up something that's very close, very similar. Now this is far to my right, so it's hard to kind of compare these exactly, but it still seems like through here this is a little off. But the idea is that you can then turn those straight lines into a curve. Let's try to curve that, shall we? And then if I did the same thing here, and if all these lines were correct, well then I should be able to get, again, should be able to curve this off, create a curve out of this that is very much more similar to the curve that I was trying to match. And that's the whole idea of using straight lines to define curves. It can be much easier to replicate a curve using straight lines. And that's what we're doing here. We're just using straight lines. So again, we have, again, the part coming out of the tear duct is the angle that lifts the most. And then we have the angle that comes over like so, and then we have the angle that comes down. I think this tear duct needs a little more room, so I'm going to bring this tear duct over a little bit and start the lifting process from here. We also want to remember that, you know, we have this, we have, of course, the eyeball that's, you know, that this is wrapping around, and so, you know, some people you know, to help you visualize the structure, sometimes it's not a bad idea to go ahead and, you know, put a circle behind there, or to imagine a sphere, if you will, and imagine that sphere while we're drawing the eye. Now, normally, and this is a little bit because this is starting to kind of go around the corner of the sphere, and if you're looking straight into the eye, there's usually an angle from the bottom of the tear duct to the corner of the eye. And so this diagonal here, it's very rare that someone's completely straight. That's almost bizarre. There's usually some sort of angle, and of course, depending on the person's, you know, age and background and ethnicity and these different things are all going to change that relationship. But I want you to understand, look for that, because it's common, no matter whose eye you're looking at, because of the structure of the eye, the way it's constructed. For the bottom lid, we're going to look for two angles, okay? We're going to break this down to two angles. This is going to be more sort of the classic, some people call this an almond-shaped eye, but it's actually not the shape of an almond. This does not echo that exactly. It just doesn't. So we have three angles here, two angles below. This angle is coming down, and usually this is more extreme. This is coming down and around the eye, and then this is coming up into that tear duct. And so this is the basic shape of this eye, where we've got the tear duct, we've got, you know, the top lid, we've got the bottom lid, and then we're going to go ahead and round this off. So we're going to go ahead and bring this around. Like so. Round that off a little bit. Right? And then we're going to come over here and we're going to round this off as well. So we're going to end up with a shape that looks about like that, as far as this goes. So this is going to be, again, the basic shape of the eye. Again, this is wrapping around this eyeball. This is our eye space, so the whole eye is contained within that eye space. This might stretch a little more, because usually you're going to touch that. You know, this is our eye space. We're going to touch that. If this is extending a little bit, well, then guess what? This is going to come over a little bit too. So maybe where I had it originally was just fine. Okay, so go into the tear duct, something about like right there. So, and I'm going to just go ahead and soften this a little bit. Maybe we'll, because this is just roughing this out. This isn't the final. This is just kind of roughing this out a bit. So we're going to go ahead and lighten this up. I'm doing this in charcoal just so we can see it better on the camera. Pencil's a little silvery and a little harder to see. Okay, so now we want to remember that this eye has a thickness. You know, the eyelid is not paper thin, so it's going to have a thickness. So if we're looking straight into the eye, we actually would see, now we'd have to look pretty, you have to look really well, because the eyelashes will come down in front of this top lid and cover this a little bit. So you're gonna have, sometimes we have to imagine what's actually there behind other stuff. But if you've ever seen a sculpture or anything like that, you'll see that, yeah, that if we have an eye here, say we had an eye from the side or something, it projects that a little more, but you would actually see, again, the lid would wrap around that eye. This is the top of the eye, so this would wrap around the top of that eye, and this right here, whoops, this is supposed to be the eyeball itself. This right here is the thickness of the skin. That skin has a thickness. It's sitting and resting on the eye. It has a thickness. This isn't supposed to be eyelashes. This is supposed to be the thickness of the skin. Just in case, I want to make that very clear right now. This would come up around. Now this would be the side of the eye in profile, but we're looking straight into this eye. But again, there's going to be, if we had, let's say we went ahead and put on the top of the eyelid. So this is the other thing. This is not the eyelid. This is the thickness of the skin. So if we had something coming over here like this, let's say, this would be, again, this would be going, and we were thinking of this in what we call cross contour, showing the contour, so as if we were drawing lines on the face. This would be coming back off the eyebrow. This would then hit the lid. It would project out. Then it would tuck in because there's a thickness to the skin. It would then touch the eyeball. Then it would project out along the eyeball. We could start to create a contour line that would start to show the form. It's another way of creating form. And you guys probably have seen cross hatching and things like that. And that's all that's doing is this is called cross contour, where you're actually trying to use the lines to describe the actual form of the object. Cross hatching, a lot of times, not always, but sometimes it's just creating value, but it actually is not going with the form. Cross contour is a little more descriptive. There's also going to be, again, a thickness on the lid coming down, alright, like so. So again, we've got a little bit of the thickness of the lid here. This is coming back where these two lids meet. This again is the top thickness of that. Again, this is the front of the eye. This is the back of the eye that touches. Pardon me. This is the front part of that thickness, and this is where the eyelash is going to grow from. This right here is actually touching the white of the eye, right? So again, we're going to have something about like that. Now, I'm a lefty, so obviously you right-handed folk would be drawn a little bit differently. I mean, I guess, whatever. Sometimes you'll hear the pencil squeak. That's because the charcoal, that's something that happens with a charcoal pencil. And again, this is just that thickness of that line. Thickness of the line, pardon me, the thickness of the skin itself. Just like, you have a fingernail, it's not paper thin, it has a thickness. This, it's not a razor blade. This is even far thicker than your fingernail. So again, it has a thickness. We want to be thinking of the fact that, and that implies volume. That implies 3 dimensions by giving something a thickness like this. So again, we've got the inside that touches the eye right here, and this is the outside edge. Now, the other things we want to be thinking about with this eye that's really important. We have, of course, the bottom lid, the top lid. We have the white part of the eye called the sclera. We also have we have the tear duct over here. far as that goes. Depending on the person, sometimes you can see a little bit of the membrane that's can be prominent. Sometimes it tucks almost right behind the tear duct, so it's not very noticeable. So you're going to want to look. That's a red sort of. I'm calling it a membrane, but anyways, it's right next to the tear duct, and you know, so depending on what the person's eye looked like, is that prominent? Is it not prominent? Things like that are going to become very important when you're drawing somebody's eye. So again, this right here. So now we're going to actually add, or maybe we should talk about this a little bit more, that this actually is in shadow normally. So let's go ahead and put a tone or a shadow on that. Because again, most of the times we can't see this unless we look really, really closely. Because this is in shadow. It's underneath the shelf going back. And so this shelf is really quite dark, right? This shelf is catching more light. If we had a light source coming from here, you know, this is going to be, again, the shelf going underneath and going back and getting darker, while this shelf is projecting forward. So the light would be hitting this shelf more than that shelf. Okay, so that's really important while we're drawing this eye. The next thing is, this eye over here is just driving me nuts. I don't have a bottom lid on it, so I'm being a little, I just can't let it lie. I just won't be able to sleep with this thing. I won't be able to go to sleep tonight if I know that I didn't draw the bottom lid to this eye. I know that's probably is a little nutty, but that's just me. So, some people would call it attention to detail. Other people would probably have another word for it. But, so anyways, this is wrapping around. Now this you're going to see the wrap more because this is, again, from the side view, as far as that goes. This being the, you know, the iris and, you know, the pupil and everything else. So you have this going back. Again, this is going under. It's going to be in deep dark shadow because it's the underside of the lid. Okay. So then we have the white of the eye, and the white of the eye, as we know, is a sphere. So if I have the light coming from this side, now this is going to start to tuck in the corner, and then it's going to come out, come into the light a little bit, and then it's going to go into, you know, into shadow. So it's going to be just like a sphere. There's going to be a lighter side. If that's the lighter side, well, then this would be the darker side. And there's going to be a light side versus a dark side in that sclera. Now you got to be careful with eyes, because a lot of times people, when they first start drawing them, they make them too light. They make the eyes actually white, the sclera white, and it's not white. It's going to have a value on it, just like anything else. Plus, it's actually back in, you know, you have your brow way up here. There's a brow, and this is coming in from the brow. The brow's a shelf, and so you've got this coming in from the brow, like so, causing a shelf, and so the white of the eye is partially in shadow. It's in a cave, you know, or an overhang at the very least. Cave is probably the wrong word, but yeah, it's going to be you know, casting shadow on this thing, or that this is actually in shadow partially, and you're going to have a light side versus a shadow side. And so, you know, I'm trying to get a gradation going on here, as far as that goes. So there's going to be a gradation going from lighter to darker because it's a sphere. You're also going to have the fact that this lid and this ridge that it sits under casts a shadow across the sclera as well. Not just the sclera, but the pupil as well. This is also red. The tear duct is very dark because it's red, versus this that's white. And so again, except for the highlight, again the tear duct is fairly dark. Now it shouldn't be as dark as this, because that's still the underside, that under shelf. But there's some, we have some what we call local value, meaning how light or how dark does something start as. Well, this is red, so it's much darker. This is white, so it's much lighter. So again, this has a cast shadow, and this cast shadow, since this is a round object, is going to wrap around the white of the white sclera of the eye. The sclera meaning the white part of the eye. Usually, I wouldn't soften charcoal with my finger. It's a bad habit, but on this video, just to kind of help speed it up, I'm going to do a little bit of that. Again, this should be darker than the cast shadow on the white of the eye. So again, this is, we're not going to sit here and do lots of value gradations, but we want to be aware of that. We don't want to ignore it. Now the other thing to understand is that we have this lid here that's pink. There's lots of blood in the skin, and this may be in light, but we have to start asking ourselves, and sometimes the lid gets more light. Like usually this is receiving more light from this light source than this up here, and so there's going to be a gradation even on the lid. But there's times where something that's darker in value, if it's receiving more light, because the light would be hitting this shelf directly, it might be a little lighter than this white, because it's not hitting the white over there directly. It's back and in that, under that overhang just a little bit. So there's going to be times where you have to start to ask ourselves, what's happening there. We also have the fact that, again, where this touches, remember when things touch, we have what's called an occlusion shadow, because it's very, very, very dark. So again, now sometimes you'll get lost in what's called lost and found edges, because of the way things will go into shadow and come out of shadow. So we want to be, aware of that as well, but understand that where this touches the sclera, that red, from the capillaries in the skin, are going to go a little darker. And usually if it's over here, where this is getting more light and this is going into halftone or middle value, well, then it's going to be a little darker, the occlusion shadows and the value itself and all that good stuff. So again, we still have this eye space. We're going to place the pupil, pardon me, not the pupil, but the colored part that we call the iris. One thing about the iris, I may have gotten this to be just a little bit big. Whoops. The iris first should be a circle if it's looking straight at me. If it's not, well then that's something else. We're dealing with spheres circles in perspective, or in other words, you're dealing with the major minor axis. If it starts to look up or down or over, we're not going to get into that today. But if it's looking straight at us, it's going to be a circle. But something to understand about how big the iris should be in relation to the rest of the eye. We want to be thinking about some of this. So the iris itself, and it should be a circle. This looks to be more of an ellipse. It seems like it's not stretching the width side enough. And partially the reason I'm doing that is because if you get it too big, like I don't think this should go up that far. I think it should go up through there. And it's no longer a circle, but you can make the circle too big, and that's where I was going to go for, is that this right here should not be more than a third of the rest of the eye. So I was kind of stretching it, trying to keep it under that, to not make the iris too big in the eye. And usually the iris will touch, not always, if they're looking up, if they're looking over, but usually the eye at rest this will almost be touching the bottom lid. Well, this is part of the reason I was kind of, I was stretching this, because I didn't want, if you got your eye too far open, which I think mine is a little bit because that's why this isn't quite as close, but it's not quite a circle. And this isn't, usually this is touching a little bit more down here at the bottom. Now, I should say this, that the eye we're doing is an adult eye. This is not a teenager's eye. This is not a 5-year-old's eye. This is not a 3-year-old's eye. The proportion of the eyes to the face are different. The way the eyes develop are slightly different. This is for a full-grown adult person. I'm going to go ahead and put a value in here. And again, this up here, and of course, depending on how dark the person's eye is, local value, meaning how dark does the person's eye start off as. If this person's eyes were brown, this would be far darker. If this eye, as it goes up into that cast shadow. If the eyes are blue, it's going to be lighter. If the eyes are somewhere in between, it's going to be somewhere in between. So again, we want to start looking at what are the value relationships of that eye, and at the very least, there's going to be a gradation in the eye going darker as it comes up, getting lighter as it comes out from under that cast shadow and starts to catch some of the light. Okay, we haven't placed the pupil yet, but this is important because usually the top of the eye is covered, more of the iris is covered with the top of the lid than the bottom, which means the pupil is going to be in the middle of the circle, not in the middle of the eye. So it's actually a little closer to the top lid than it is the bottom, because the eye at rest, again, is covered more up here, which means this is going to be, more distant from the bottom. Now, I think this right here is that's right there, that should be the middle. I need to drop this a little bit. I was making a little bit too. Okay. And so again, this is going to be the pupil. Now, many times, depending on where the light's coming from and what kind of light source it is and all these sorts of things, there's going to be a highlight in the eye because the eye is both wet, plus we have a sort of a contact lens we call the cornea that gives us that sort of like a little bit of the glassy look to the eye. I've had people I've known where I've seen them where they've had their cornea replaced, and it's really kind of interesting because the artificial cornea is shinier than a person's regular cornea, and maybe it's just because I'm an artist, but I could tell the difference. I was like, wow, because all of a sudden this person looked like they had doll eyes. There were like more highlights throwing off on that lens was showing than what would normally be, and it was just kind of interesting because it made the eyes pull a lot more attention because there was just more highlight. So again, you're going to have the pupil that's really dark. The pupil will change as it, light and low light conditions it gets bigger, and in bright light conditions it gets smaller. On sitting on top of that, on top of the iris and the pupil is the cornea, which helps protect the eye. We also have, if you look at the pigmentation of a person's eye, it's a little darker out towards the edge, but understand this edge is going up into shadow, so it's going to be getting, again, a little lighter as it comes down, right? Again, we're not trying to render a specific eye. This is just general ideas of what the eye does, but it's interesting when we start to put this in all together, these ideas start to have, a lot of information. It's going to start to look realistic. So all the information piles up and it starts to look more and more and more like, oh yeah, it looks like an eye. So again, like this right here might be a little too light right now. We'd have to darken this up. How's the shadow looking? The cast shadow might not be dark enough. It's just little stuff like that. Now again, we're not going to render this eye for you today. This is just a beginning eye. But we also want to be aware of, again, the basic relationships of an eye. Well, again, we usually this a little too fuzzy there with that highlight. Again, this is going to get darker as it comes up. Now, there's also these fibers that you'll see in the eye, and you got to, now, unless you're detailing this, again, just make sure it has a gradation. but you get these little fibers that you'll see, you know, these little lines sometimes they look like that are radiating from the pupil like the sun. But understand that they better have a value. So right now those don't have any value, but if I was smart, I would start to make them darker and denser as they go up top, so that the eye itself starts to have more of a gradation. This would then be again in shadow, so this would be darker. Again, all this stuff again it combines, you know, and the more we do it, the more it starts to look eye-like. You know, as we start to give more of this information, it's due, if you will. Again, this is going to come over here, come across here. This probably still needs to go a little bit darker. You know, you have the outside edge of the eye here. That's going to be, you know, again, going to be very, very prominent. We're talking about eyelashes in just a second. Again, we might have to, you know, as this goes into here, might be getting just slightly darker. As this goes again into the you know, again, just getting these little bits of information. Again, this eye starts to look more and more eye-like. Now, again, we're not going to render this, but I just want to show you just enough where you're going, oh yeah, I can see it happening. I can see some of the magic happen, so to speak, on this eye. But here's the good thing. Again, sometimes the eye people can be like, well, wait a minute, why does the eye look so light then? I mean, I know it's white. And you're putting value on there, and how's it supposed to look like it's not a dingy eye, or that it's not, you know, dirty or something like that? Well, it's all this, you know, or something weird, like it doesn't look, how is it going to look like that's a white eye back there? Well, it's the surrounding information. So as this goes darker, this lid, interesting thing happens to the surrounding values. This starts to look lighter. As this goes darker, the surrounding lighter area looks lighter. So it's all about the relationships. It's all about these, you know, these basic relationships on this eye. Again, as this goes, this is why this is so important, is because, you know, and sometimes we have to push things. Like we'll be like, well, if I want to make this look lighter, there's got to be some value over here on this. Even though this is in light, there's got to be some value on it. So again, this looks lighter. So again, it's these relationships that's going to make this start to look right. Now we also need some more information around the eye, because this is starting to seem a little disembodied. It doesn't seem to relate to anything. So it starts to look strange, almost like just a floating disembodied eye that has no other information. And that can be very, very strange. It has a really weird feel to it. But here's the cool thing. Once we've got enough value in there, like sometimes you'll get a light highlight going across the sclera and into the pupil a little bit, give you sort of that, you know, the sort of, again, what you'll sometimes, you got to be careful that you don't make it too doll-like, but where you'll get, again, a highlight that's going across both areas. And the only way you can get that illusion is if you have some value in the eye. If you don't have any value in the eye, you can't make that sort of illusion happen. So again, this is all very important, you know, as you get into other stuff where you're dealing with rendering or something like that, this stuff becomes, again, still very, very important as far as that goes. So, and I'm just trying to clarify a little bit of that so we can see what I'm talking about. I'm not making this up, but that again, we've got, that's kind of small, isn't it? So let's bring this up a little bit. Let's make that slightly larger. It seems a little too small. Like, what is that about? So again, we're just, we're going to go ahead and put that in. And again, it starts to feel like, you know, again, just this little bit of this highlight going across there can make it feel like, oh, that's a wet surface. And, you know, obviously we need some moisture in the eye. Otherwise our eyes would dry out, and that would not be good for us. It would, you know, would not be good for our vision. You know, so we we can create that illusion by, again, putting the information next to it. Now I think I actually darkened over here just a little bit too much. But so I can take some of that and soften it just a little bit. But again, it has to have some value there, otherwise it won't have that illusion. So we need some of that. The other thing that we're going to have on this eye that we want to be thinking about is there's going to be, you know, a value over here on the lid itself. Now the lid is going to be, you know, there's going to be some places that'll be a little darker. If this is the shadow side, then it comes in to the light. So it's going to be coming into the light and getting a little bit lighter. And then as it moves away from the light, it's going to be getting a little darker. All that good stuff. And then as this starts to move away from the light again, it seems like I'm shaking that board. I better get my hand off of there. Quit trying to rest my hand on it. But, you know, again, it's going to start to have, again, a little bit of a feeling of form. I'll just go ahead and soften some of this a little bit. And so this is, again, this would be, there's a fold of skin here. As this, you know, this is the fold. And so it's going to be a little darker. You know, you're going to have an occlusion shadow back there in that fold on that eye. Okay. So this kind of gets sort of distinct, and then it gets a little lighter. And this comes up here again. It gets a little softer through there, and then it starts to again crease, and this gets darker again. And then if this was turning away from the light, it would go darker, going that away. And, you know, of course, if we were rendering this, there'd be all kinds of little stuff going on, you know, highlights and things like that, that we're not going to get super crazy about. But, you know, you could have, again, because of the value, you could start to have things that look like highlights. And the only reason that they're going to look like highlights is because, again, you've put down a value. So, again, the value thing, very, very important. This little pucker of the tear duct is going to be outside the eye space. This has a little sort of a kind of puckers right there, and then there's, you know, this little shelf that starts to show a little bit of the. We have an upper lid. Well, we also have a lower lid, but you got to be careful if you put too much value on this lower lid. If it gets too dark, it's going to look like this person hasn't slept in like 3 weeks. And the reason why, I mean, we can pick up on that. We just instinctively go, wow, that person looks tired. And the reason why, sometimes we don't have the information. Sometimes we don't, you know, why is that happen like that? Is that this is coming out of the shadow. So this is the overhang. Down here, it's actually, the light is clearing the overhang and hitting down here on this lower lid. And so the lower lid has more light on it than the upper lid. And because of that, it's lighter. And so if it gets too dark, it just is something that we're not used to seeing unless the person is super exhausted or something like that, you know, or whatever, been hurt or something around their eye or something like that. But this is, so you got to be careful with that. Usually you're going to get more value in the corners on that lower lid, and then just a little as it comes around. But again, you have to be very, very, very careful with that lower lid. You know, if you put, you know, too heavy of a crease in there, it's going to look like an age line or something. And that's fine if the person is, you know, has some of that going on. But if they don't, you just, again, you want to be aware of what you're doing. Because little changes like that around the eyes, we look at the eyes the most, more than a feature. And so we want to know what they're going to look like. So again, so we've got something that's going to start to look like an actual eye. with all this information. Still may need to be a little darker through here. As far as that goes, this might need to be getting just a little bit darker here on the shadow side of the eye. You know, there's some little things you can do, but again, we're not rendering this thing. It's not the point. And if we were rendering, we'd be pushing this a whole lot more. There'd be a lot more stuff going on. The last thing we want to do with this, and again, this is sort of all the same value, and it wouldn't be. If we start to look at the eye, like this might get a little bit darker, and then as it moves over, it gets lighter. This gets a little darker, but then as it moves over here, it might start to get lighter. There's all these variations that start to happen. Like this might get darker here, and then suddenly, because this is casting a slight shadow onto this, but as it curves, because it's coming out, the eye is round, right? So as it comes out, it's going to clear that, and it's going to get lighter. So if this is the same value all the way around, it's going to look flatter. And again, if this light is coming down, it's going to be hitting this as this wraps around the eyeball. It's going to be hitting here much more than as it rounds back or rounds back that way. So just little stuff like that can really start to help us feel that illusion of volume on this eye. But again, this would come into here. This then comes over there. This comes over here, and it starts to transition into the corner of the eye. This comes down. You know, we could start to. There's actually a little bit more of this carrying around and through. Sort of thing. It lightens and gets softer. We of course would have an eyebrow up through here. You know, we're not going to worry a lot about rendering the eyebrow, right? So we'd have an eyebrow up there of some sort. Boy, does that look like someone had a eyebrow sculpting mishap. But we'd have an eyebrow up here. That's all right. You probably just see the top of this thing. And remember that all this is in shadow. This is this overhang. And so again, this overhang in here is all going to have... Now there's a part right about here that starts to receive a little bit of light. Okay, it says the ocular cavity is starting to curve up and come up onto the brow. We don't want it to look like a highlight, but we want to understand that that's in light, or actually a half light. If we want to get technical, that's going to be a half light. But again, this is going to be much darker. This is going to be getting darker as it comes in here. Again, this is projecting forward, so it's going to be getting a little bit lighter. This is going to be getting a little darker, then it comes up, gets a little lighter, comes up here, gets a little lighter, then it starts to get darker as it goes back in and wraps around and rounds back in. All that good stuff. Right? I think I might have been shaking that board again because I had my hand on it. So I got to be careful of that. So again, I think this whole thing, this is still too light, so there we go. Now it's starting to push back a little bit. And again, this is going in here into a darker part. So this actually gets darker as it comes right against here before it comes out of the eye. And, you know, because you have sort of a shelf here. You have the ocular cavity, and then you have it coming on the shelf to the cheekbone and over. And so this starts to catch light. Whereas this is back in that part of that cavity. And again, it gets really dark through here. Now there's an area where this will start to get darker right through here. So there's some subtle stuff that happens. And again, this isn't for rendering. This is structural. As this is going back and getting darker, there's like this starts to actually come up and it starts to get reflected light. So what many times you'll see is a lot of times you'll see this edge right here that's darker, and then it gets a little bit lighter, and then it hits this where it gets darker again. And this is, again, it's just as the ocular cavity is coming up to the... There's like a ridge where it comes over, comes down, and then it really dips down. And this is where this is coming down a little bit, and then it dips way down into the ocular cavity with the eyeball. And so, again, you'll get this thing where This has just a little bit of reflected light here, and then this dark comes down into here. So it's subtle, but it's stuff like that that can really help the eye to start to feel like an eye. Again, this is, you know, more in shadow. Now this should be darker here. It gets a little bit lighter as it comes up again. It's going to come up onto the brow, and this actually hits into the glabella, and then the, you know, this is the nose over here, the, you know, the ridge of the nose. But the idea is that, again, that we're trying to think about what the values are doing. We're trying to think about what the form is doing on this eye, okay? And by doing this, we're going to have something that's going to start to look eye-like. We want that, right? Now, the last thing we're going to do on this eye is we want this eye to, and again, this goes in for the eye, and then this projects out, and then up onto the eye, the brow, and this coming back in, and this coming back in. It creates an area where you can't touch the eye because of the fact that it's, you know, your palm would hit here and here, and you actually can put your hand on your face, on your brow and your cheekbone, and you'll see that if you're not touching your eye, you can actually slap your brow and your cheekbone at the same time with your hand. You won't touch your eye because it's back in there. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do in this is we're going to deal with the eyelashes. Now the eyelashes grow right from the edge of this, and again, this is the edge. This is the edge of that eyelid, and this is the edge down here of the eyelid. And so if we have any eyelashes, they're going to be growing from you know, they're going to be growing from those points. You know, not back here where it touches, the sclera. So we just want to, and I know you know, I just want to make sure, because sometimes I'll have, you know, I've, you know, people can get confused, and I've certainly been there too. I mean, everyone has to start at the same place of drawing, and so when I first started drawing that, sometimes it was, you know, it was hard not to be confused. Sometimes. Now, I'm sure you guys are smarter than I am, so that's probably not an issue. But if someone has an issue like that, say, hey, you know, there's been a lot of people that have been there. No big deal. You know, it's like getting, you know, middle C mixed up with D when you're playing the piano. It's not that big a thing. You just learn it, and you learn to not do it again, and away you go. So again, so we've got this. We're gonna have to decide now. Whenever we're doing eyelashes, things that we want to avoid. We don't want to do spider lashes. Okay? So we don't want that. Looks like a, you know, looks like a bad, anyway, it's just, you don't want to do that. So when we look for lashes, the lashes actually naturally group. And so when lashes are growing off an eye, they will actually start to kind of group into these natural little triangles that start to happen. Right, and if we start to look for those triangles, these overlapping groupings, it'll look more like an eyelash than if we do the, you know, lashes that look like that, which is just never a good look. Now, comic book artists are aware of this, and you'll see sometimes on their people. Now, on the, you know, if it's a guy, they're not going to normally put a very long eyelash on them. But they'll do something like this if it's highly stylized. And notice we got the triangles. This is to just go, oh yeah. And so even though it's a stylization, it's actually, again, taking what's actually happening and then stylizing it in a way that's interesting. So, you know, again, so you know, if you're doing a more cartoon eye, but this is still actually based on reality. Now, if I was doing a, you know, realism or hyper-realism, where you might be dealing with every individual lash, but you're going to start to be looking for, you know, again, how those lashes begin to, you know, overlap, how they group, and so forth and so on. Now, this is pretty dull pencil, unfortunately, but again, you could start to, again, create groupings of lashes that are, again, starting to line up into these ways. that we see as being much more the way nature sort of, you know, we're kind of aware of stuff. Again, this isn't a great pencil. It's not very sharp. But if we had like a really sharp graphite pencil, again, we could really, or if I had a really sharp, you know, even charcoal pencil, we could do that. But again, you can start to deal with, you know, trying to do individual sorts of things. You know, again, where these things are overlapping, just like real hairs do off the eyes. And again, that can be very, very strong. Now the other thing, these are just all kind of, these are actually growing straight up. That's not good either. So the other thing we have to remember is that these are actually, and especially with perspective, they actually will come down and then they lift up and they get shorter as they come forward because of the perspective. They're going to come down and again they're going to come up more, and that covers part of this. So again, these lashes down here actually should be coming down and then turning up, coming down and then turning up. And because of perspective, as these go away from us, they come down less and they come out more. And so whenever you have lashes, again, I should probably do some in-between stuff on here, but anyways, let's just go ahead and stylize this a little bit. But they're going to be getting a little bit longer as they come out to the corner of the eye. They start, the lashes start to get much longer because they're not coming down and foreshortening. This is a foreshortening lash. And so if we simplified this, we're going to essentially get something that's going to do something about like the lash starts to get shorter, because they're not shorter, they're actually foreshortening. So the lash is coming down and then flipping up. And so it creates this natural, this rhythm. Let's just go and fill this in. This rhythm where the lashes are getting longer as they come out. Now again, we're talking about an eye that we're looking straight at, and then they'd be getting shorter as they come here because again of foreshortening, and they're going to be getting thinner too. But understand that that's something that's going on with our eyes. That again, these are going to, this should be longer than this. That's not really great. That's not the best. But the idea is that again, if we had an eye and we wanted to represent the idea of lashes, again, we'd have them longer here, getting shorter as they came in. Something about, well, that's a little bit, that's not simplified in the best terms. This is a little frumpy through here, but the idea is that it is still, you know, kind of giving us a little bit of what lashes actually do as they grow. This is getting a little too skinny too quickly, but the idea is whether we're doing this or whether we're doing something more realistic, that's happening. So we want to be aware of it. We want to have it on there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do just some basic little lashes. Now a lot of times for like things where we're not doing realism, we just need to indicate lashes. Now also the idea is what's the gender of the person that, you know, that we're trying to draw, because, you know, you may not want to put really long lashes on somebody. You know, so again, we could, so a lot of times on something that's more, people would say, well, it's kind of fine art. They would just bring some lashes off here and they would just indicate lashes. They're not thinking about every individual, but they are going to be thinking, hey, they're going to be getting longer as they come out here, and they're going to be getting shorter and foreshortening more as they come up. You know, we just need enough there to go, yeah, lashes. If we're just trying to indicate lashes. Now, if we're trying to, again, do something that's a little bit more realistic, well, we might put more information in there. This is too much. This is starting to look like I'm trying to push it in a direction that I'm not trying to go. This is not trying to be, again, even It's not. It's just representationalism. It's not trying to push realism or photorealism or anything. But it's not trying to ignore lashes either. So we're trying to say, hey, what does the drawing look like it's looking to do? Like, you know, so I could indicate again just little bits of, you know, again, you got to be careful with this that you don't put too many on here, but you could, and they actually have to be coming off the edge. But I could go ahead and put just a couple lashes coming off, and you gotta, this is a big eye, so you gotta be careful, because again, I'm looking at it like, man, I'd be able to see more information if it's this big, but the idea still is that got a wayward mark there that just will keep me up all night. Well, we need just enough to show that this has eyelashes. Now, if it was somebody who was, you know, if we're in a Maybelline commercial, you know, or we're doing something for a Maybelline product, well then, yeah, you're going to have lashes that almost look like they're not, you know, they're not natural, that they're almost like paste-ons, or, you know, these luscious, full lashes. Well, yeah, you could do that. You know, if you again, I used to be an illustrator, and so again, know your audience. You know what you're trying to say. But if you want something to look like a Maybelline commercial, again, you're going to make the eyelashes fuller and longer and darker and all that kind of stuff. If you're just like, hey, I want this to look like they got lashes, and their lashes weren't burned off somehow in some sort of tragic accident or whatever, well, then I'm probably gonna, you know, I'm gonna be a little bit more, where I'm just putting a few things to go, yeah, there's lashes there. We're not going to worry about how many. I'm not going to be counting them. I'm not going to be trying to make them all look perfect or something like that. They just need to have lashes. Well, then, you know, we can go ahead and do that. Again, what's the person's look? You know, if we're doing portraiture, you know, we're going to look at how dark their hair is, how dark their lashes are, how long their lashes are, these sorts of things. And by doing this, we can, again, start to get an eye. Now, again, we're not going to detail this. We're not going to get in here to all the little, these look kind of weird, but soften that, I guess. We're not going to get, you know, way into, and again, this isn't about detailing. This is not the point of this one. We're going to do some intermediate eyes and some advanced eyes to where we actually are doing detailing and stuff like that, and trying to push it towards being almost a, you know, photorealistic eye and stuff, or maybe even beyond. But that's not what we're doing today. We just want enough information where it looks like, oh yeah, that could be an eye. And I think we're at that point where we go, yeah, I'll buy that. That looks like an eye. So again, when we're doing this just real quick, remember that you have the first trapezoid shape is for the tear duct, the 3 angles up top, 2 angles below, that there's a thickness to both lids, though this one's in shadow. We then have that the sclera is white, but it has volume, so it's going to be having a, you know, a value gradation. We also have that there's a slight cast shadow casting onto the eye that gets darker as it comes up. And even darker still is going to be this shelf on that lid under the eye. We have to make sure, again, if it starts to look too light, it can look bizarre. So it's got to be definitely in shadow under a shelf. And so we're going to have that. We're then going to have that, you know, we're going to have indication of lashes, top lid, thinking of the entire eye, highlights, pupil, iris. This gets lighter as it comes down, just all that good stuff. I want something that looks like an eye. So go ahead and give this a shot. Try to be more creative. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.